Succah Daf Yud Aleph, how's everybody doing? Today's email comes from Dean Furman. He's from Johannesburg, South Africa. He says, I've really been enjoying your shiurim on the Daf since I heard about you in the Shir on Meaningful People podcast. Proper Geschmack. I'm part of Daf Yomi in Johannesburg, South Africa. We're full morning, 9 to 1, learning the Daf and enjoy reviewing the Daf by watching your video at the end of each day. Your visual stories and jokes make the Daf come alive. Not only is the way you teach awesome, but the way that you have created a community of chevra that has so much achdos. My great friend and neighbor, Antonino, his dad is Italian, is making Aliyah from South Africa in 2 weeks' time. And he's moving to Ramat Bet Shemesh. I told him about the amazing shir in the community, and he's super keen to join and learn with you in person. I hope there is space. Goes on to say that he hopes that the amazing kindness of the chevra is going to welcome him, etc. Keep up the great work, Dean Furman. Beautiful. So, Succah Daf Yud Aleph. Yesterday, we learned that according to Shmuel, we're talking about a kila. It's a covering on top of a bed. And according to Shmuel, it's permitted to sleep in a kila that's inside of a sukkah, even though the kila has a rooftop of a tefach, as long as it's not 10 tefachim. And today we're learning about another lashon, not necessarily a contradiction to the first lashon. If this kila does not have a roof at all, doesn't have a tefach, it finishes off at a point, so you're allowed to sleep in it even if it's taller than yud tefachim, 10 tefachim. So it goes like this: a kila is very, very temporary. So therefore, it's only also if you have a combination of two things, that it's 10 tefachim tall and it has a roof of a tefach. A kinoif, which is on the other side, it's completely permanent because it has a roof. It's also even less than 10 tefachim. Naklitin is smack in the middle. It's a little bit more permanent than a kila. It's less permanent than a kinoif. It's also if it has 10 tefachim. Rabbi Yehuda says it's mutter to sleep underneath a bed. And he says, in fact, that's how we used to do it in front of the Chachamim. The reason is because a bed is an oil aray. It's a temporary tent oil. And the permanent oil of the sukkah is mevatalit. And Rabbi Bar Rav Huna added, not only a bed, which it's common practice to sleep on top of the bed and not underneath it. So you think that's why maybe it's not also to sleep under, but even a kilo, which the derech is to sleep in it, and it has a rooftop of 1 tefach and it's more than 10 tefachim, it's mutter to sleep in it. Brand new Mishnah, we actually learned this once before. If you take a vine and you put on top of the sukkah or gourds or ivy, any kind of crawling branch, and then you mix it up with the schach, it's possible. If the schach has a roiv and you mix it in, then it's kosher. And if you snip the vine at the source, so it's no longer mechuber lekarka, it's not connected to the ground, it's kosher. According to Rav, you don't have to lift up the schach at all because when you snip it, that's considered you put it down. According to Shmuel, you must lift up the schach. And the same halacha applies by tzitzis. Let's say you take a very long string and you put it in 4 times, you keep on putting it through the hole over and over, and you made all the knots, and only afterwards you cut the ends. It's like the Maisa we had with Reb Amram Chasida. He was a big chassid. He held that women are chayav in tzitzis because it's not a mitzvah shazman groma. He made tzitzis like that for his wife, but he forgot to snip off the end. And Rav Paskin psikasan asiyasan, snipping off the end, that's creating the tzitzis, and it's mutter. If you are to take the tzitzis and put it through 2 of the corners, 2 of the holes, same thing like before, but now it's 2 corners, and before you made any of the knots, you snipped it, it's kosher. What's the big chiddush? Because I would think that the Torah says hakanaf. You're supposed to put it through 1 corner, you put it through 2, it should be a problem, kamashmal or not. There's a question on Rav from a Mefurish Brisa that says that if you put the string of the tzitzis through the hole, and you make the knots, and then you snip the ends, it's possible. We don't have a way out of that brisa. But there's another brisa that's not a big kash on Rav. It says in the brisa, just like our Mishnah, that if you take the vines of a grape and you put it on top of the sukkah, it's tasav eloimina also. There was pasul schach that you made afterwards, kosher. And we have to say that, of course, he cut it from the source, otherwise it would be another problem, mechuber. and it says that it's possible. So Rav is going to have to explain that we're talking about shalfinu. He didn't cut it, but he broke it off and it stayed right there, so it looks as if it's mechuber, and that is the isser. If a hadas, one of the hadasim, has more grapes, berries, than leaves, so the halacha is you must remove the leaves, but before Yontif. On Yontif itself, you're not allowed to, because it's misaka money, you're fixing the kli. You're fixing the hadas. What if you were over and you fixed it on Yontif? So machlekes. Now it's interesting. There are three things that need to come together in order to say that this is also. First of all, you have to say that you're mechuyev to be ma'agid, put the aravas, hadas, and lulav together. Second, that just like a sukkah, there's a tasav lemanasi. Lulav also has tasav lemanasi. And third of all, that when you break off the berries, that's not considered making the hadas. So whoever's machshir this kind of hadas on Yontif has to say that he's mechulik on one of these three things. Rabbi Yehuda says that you're mechuyev to put the lulav, hadasim, and aravas together. He learns Gzeir Shava. Rabbanan never had that Gzeir Shava from the Rebbes, so therefore they don't have the Gzeir Shava. According to Rabbanan, even though there's no chiyuv to put the hadasim together with the aravas, but if you do it, there's a special mitzvah, zakeli vanveyu, snal in front of mitzvahs, make the mitzvahs beautiful. Says the Mishnah, there's a klal, there's a rule. Anything that's mekabel tumah and doesn't grow from the ground, you shouldn't use for schach. And if it grows from the ground, and it's not mekabel tumah, you use it as schach. According to Rebbe Eliezer, the sukkahs in the midbar were actually clouds, the anani hakavod. And by clouds it says in Bereshis, ve'ed yalim in haaretz. Where does a cloud come from? It comes from the ground. So it's not mekabel tumah, it comes from the ground. That's how we know this idea. According to Rebbe Kiva, that says that in the midbar it was real sukkahs, not a cloud. So he has to learn from a different source, as we'll see in tomorrow's daf. Have a wonderful day.